Hey, Sony B Alpha comes to Orlando, and I got a chance to attend. Want to find out what it's like? Stick around, I'll let you know. Hi, my name is William Beem for Photo Flunky TV, and welcome. All right, so you're probably curious, what is B Alpha? If you haven't been to one of these events before, you may have heard of them. There's some videos out on YouTube already from previous events. B Alpha is kind of what Sony is trying to get you to believe when you think of their cameras. They've got a little video on their website, Alpha Universe. If you click on B Alpha, and you can see there, and you'll see as it goes through, they've got a few phrases. Be adventurous, be brave, be relentless, be inspired, be lighter, and be passionate. All these wonderful little B phrases. So this kind of gives you the idea of what they believe of their product and the people that are using them. So this was all good for me. I wanted to go there. I really wanted to be impressed. And I went there with a lot of optimism for the event. This was just a little bit outside of Orlando. It's actually in Winter Park. It was a location called The Heavy. What does The Heavy mean? I am not knowing. What it really is a former Lombardi's seafood packing house. Yes, it was in a fish warehouse. Fortunately, it didn't smell like fish anymore. It's actually kind of a floral workshop area that's in there right now. And it made for an interesting location. They had a couple of problems. One is that the fire code would not allow them to let everyone in. I swear a couple of hundred people showed up. And there were long lines throughout the whole time I was there of people who could not get in. So they were trying to rotate people in and out of the building. Air conditioning, if it worked, it wasn't turned up high enough. So it was a bit of a letdown for the location, quite simply because they could not manage everybody who needed to get there. And in fact, they were kind of slow to get us in the first place. The event was scheduled to go from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on a Sunday. We were there. We got in probably about 4:30, ready to go. And it was 5:30 before they actually opened the doors to let us in. Have no idea what the delays were caused. People came out and kind of went up and down the line to make sure everybody was registered. And they had forms in case you showed up and you weren't registered. They would still let you in, presuming that you were one of the people early enough in line before they started cutting people off. Sony folks were really nice. I got to hand it to the people at Sony. They treated everyone. They were kind, they're courteous, they're friendly, they're professional. No qualms at all about the people from Sony as far as their attitude and their commitment to service. They were great folks. Just no other way to put it. And there was a lot of gear there. I ended up with, I asked for a Sony A7R3 and a 7200 millimeter lens. They said, no problem. Picked one off a shelf. They said, if you wanted to try another lens or another body, come back here, trade it in what you've got, and you can try something else. So there was no shortage of gear available for people to try out. And there were plenty of models around there too. They had probably nearly a dozen people that you could shoot, maybe not a dozen, but just close to it. And they had 5 different shooting areas. So some of them were themed in the floral areas. Some of them, they had sets that they designed inside the building. They had a couple of dancers. I think if they're not married, they're at least engaged, because I've been following them on Instagram. And these people, the dancers, were just absolutely wonderful. Really talented, very happy to see them. And there were also a few other models that were outside. And it was getting darker, so some of the situations for lighting were kind of changing. I'll get to that in a moment. Now, that's all of the good news. That they had the event, they invited people to come see what they wanted to see, and they had really talented models there, and I was quite pleased with that. The mediocre news is they promised yummy food and drink. What I saw instead was delivery pizza and a couple of bowls of candy. Didn't see the drinks, and who knows, maybe it was there, maybe it wasn't. I saw a couple of people walking around with Cokes, and that was about it. So this is not an event where I was really worried about going there to eat and munch on things. It was something where I really wanted to find out more information about Sony cameras. And that's kind of where I get down to the bad news, unfortunately, with this event. And it was incredibly disorganized. Unfortunately, they just did not have any way to manage the people that were coming in. And that includes not securing a venue that was large enough to fit everybody that had registered to come in there. Like I said, there was a long line of people waiting their turn to get in. And even after I left, there was still a long line of people waiting their turn to get in. There was a gentleman who was going through trying to make sure everybody knew about the fire code issue. You know, he encouraged people to get their shots at the photo stations while they were inside. And then there were a couple more photo stations outside. So he'd ask them, please go out there and you'll find more models. And also the food was outside, which sounded good until you realize once you've done that, you can't get back in. Actually, you could. They left the back door kind of unguarded, but it was the thought that counts. There were a couple of guests there I thought were incredibly rude. They would just brush past people who were, standing in line waiting their turn, either to shoot with a model or to get more gear. And they just went right past them and said, I'm here, I'm getting my stuff, and the rest of you, they didn't even pay attention to. That was sad. It's not the fault of Sony that they behave that way, but I do wish that there had been a bit more organization about how people were able to get their gear or get into the model shooting areas. And this is one of the things I hate about group photo shoots. It is kind of everyone for themselves, and some people take that to heart. They don't necessarily say, excuse me, you go ahead and shoot and I'll come next. If you stand back and let someone else shoot, if you better move quickly or someone else will just jump right in front of you and do whatever they want to. And that's why I don't really like group photo shoots like this. It's kind of all the photographers are there. They're trying to get their shots. They're all trying to get in front of everyone else. So they've got the prime position. And then when they're done, they'll leave, but then they'll do the same thing at the next station. Keep in mind, that's a few of the people, not most of them. Most of them were really nice, friendly folks. As a matter of fact, I talked to a number of folks. It seemed that a few of them were already Sony shooters, and they were really helpful to me. I know nothing about Sony camera menus, and they were helpful to me to try and get my bearings on the camera, which is good because the employees at Sony and the people who are putting on the event didn't have any organized way of talking about their products, helping you understand it. I did find one Sony employee who helped me get just a little bit of bearing. I'm talking about maybe 1 minute of discussion of what I wanted to know for my exposure, my white balance, and my ISO, and those, basic details. I was a little disappointed that I didn't even get to try the IAF. It's there on the camera. I didn't know how to turn it on. And when you try to ask people who are so intent on shooting, they don't really want to stop what they're doing to try and help you understand the basics of the camera. And I don't blame them. That's not why they're there. So I was a little disappointed with Sony that they didn't tell me about their products. I didn't want to just go in there and pick up something I'm unfamiliar with. I wanted to hear about it. I wanted to learn about it. I was hoping that there'd be some sort of presentation that would go along with this. Unfortunately, I didn't see that at all. And that's what I really wanted. I wanted to understand Sony. I wanted to be able to really check them out and see what it has to offer. I've been a Nikon shooter for probably about a decade or more, actually more than a decade now, and I'm very comfortable with that system. And I can pick up some other cameras and figure them out. Sony's, I figured out a few things, and there were other things buried in the menus that I didn't understand. Some of the other folks who are Sony shooters came up to me and said, yeah, the Sony's menus are confusing. That I guess if you know it, it's not confusing. And if I hand someone a Nikon who had no familiarity, it'd be confusing to them as well. But that's just the nature of the beast. I wanted to learn more about the products. Unfortunately, I didn't get that. I got a few images that I could bring home, take a look at them, and the quality of the file seems very good. The autofocus that I had worked in some cases. It didn't work in others. The lighting on the models, I got to say, was really unflattering. They put up fluorescent bulb continuous lights, and it lit the area up, except for one station outdoors, which for reasons I don't understand, they didn't put lights on the subjects. They were up against a white, cement block wall, and they had almost like little white Christmas lights dangled on the sides of the models, but the places where they were posing were completely unlit. And I was getting up to ISO 2000 and going higher, and I thought, this is just not really a good look for taking portraits there. And I think that's something that a lot of people missed. To me, this was about understanding the products. Other people, I think, in fact, most people, I think, looked at it as an opportunity to go get some model portraits. So that's these are not shots that I would put in my portrait portfolio. These were shots I wanted to use to test out the gear. And so I'm just a little disappointed because I left there not really understanding and knowing that much about Sony cameras and Sony lenses. So I am very grateful for the opportunity. I really want Sony to succeed. One of the reasons why is because it pushes Nikon and Canon to do better. Both of them came out last year with their mirrorless cameras. Now I've got word recently that Nikon is going to come out with an eye autofocus, similar to Sony's, we hope. That's going to come out as a firmware update. So that is a nice possibility. And that's because Sony was inventive. Sony was innovative, and they came out with things that the bigger camera companies didn't. So now they're playing catch up, and that's good for all of us. It is pushing the brands to do more and serve their customers. I wish that there was more to this event than a group photo shoot and some lousy pizza. Unfortunately, that was my experience in the Orlando area. So I just wanted to share this with you. I see a lot of videos on YouTube about how wonderful these events are, and I believe those folks. I think that they really did have a wonderful time. This one was less than inspiring for me, and it didn't convince me that Sony should be my next camera, but I hope they do better. And if you're looking at going to a Sony B Alpha event in your community, just go with your expectations set. If you've got a friend who shoots Sony, that might be good to go with someone you know that can kind of guide you around what the menus and capabilities are, so that way you can enjoy yourself more and really get a better experience with the cameras than I did. I hope you found this helpful. I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel we're trying to build here. We've got more videos coming along. And honestly, I would love it if you'd leave a comment. Ask me any questions if you want to about the Sony B Alpha event in Orlando. I'll be happy to tell you what I experienced that may not have been in this video. And talk to you next time.